9:01. We've chatted long enough and we are called to order. Election Commission for June 26th. And our first item of business is to welcome our new commissioner. We're gonna dispense with the hazing today. Since you, I know, I thought you might want that, but we're gonna dispense with it today. Welcome.
Thank you.
We look forward to working with you. You are duly signed in as an official with the county and with the state, I guess. So we're ready to launch. You have any comments before we move on?
I appreciate it, and I look forward to working with you two, but also with the staff. I think you guys are great. I know you guys make this look easy, so I look forward to that trend continuing.
Okay. All right, next item of business is approving the minutes. I've read them, Jim signed them, and we're good on that. Yeah. And the next one, training updates.
Okay, so if you'll turn to tab 3 in your book, see how you guys like this.
Okay.
But our goal this summer is to do in August a back to basics kind of class for our supervisors to get them ready for the required training before the primary election. We know that there's going to be a lot of new changes, so we don't want to introduce everything to them all at once because the retention will be a whole lot less if you're just piling everything onto one class. Our tablets will be updated this summer. So it will be updated before we do this back to basics class. And so some of the updates to the tablet will include an easier summary screen for them to be able to figure out how many ballots they issued. Right now, they have to kind of subtract the provisionals, figure out the spoiled. There's a couple of little like things that they have to do. And so we're going to also be updating the supervisor tub that they use to organize their paperwork better. All of those kind of things will be things we'll introduce in this August meeting, and that we're gonna plan on doing that August the 18th through the 20th. Is when we'll be holding the classes for our supervisors. This also will let us know which supervisors are coming back, which supervisors we're going to have to be replacing. This will give opportunities for brand new supervisors to, come in and kind of learn a little bit. The week before is August 12th is National Poll Worker Recruitment Day. So we're going to do a big push to start recruiting poll workers and everything. But that for our training update is kind of our plan. And if you'll see here, one of the things I included is a flow chart on when voters are being checked in. So this is some of the things that we'll be working on up until August. Getting these new types of things in place, just any tools that we can create to make it easier for our poll workers. We've noticed that there are more and more complaints filed in the election arena.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with just kind of a national kind of sense of elections.
Yeah.
And so anything we can do to prevent our poll workers from making a mistake or, getting, the type of written up kind of thing is our goal. And so, this is just one of the tools that we'll be using for that.
Looks pretty comprehensive.
Well, and when you look at it too, notice all the steps it takes to check a voter in and all the different ways. It doesn't just go straight. There's like, if this happens, then this, if this happens, then this.
And the problem with some of this is they're doing it quick.
Exactly. They don't have time necessarily to sit and look at a flow chart. But this will help us also too when we're thinking about training our poll workers, thinking about those steps for them to kind of grasp the big picture.
Okay.
So yeah.
So this is not final. You're still working on refinements of it.
I am, especially when we get to, and part of that we'll talk about when we get into the new law changes, the assisted voter part, that assisted voter having to show an ID is actually going to add several different steps into this process. So that definitely will need a little
It'll
bit
take more than one page.
So I will print this on
Okay.
ledger size paper, but for today's notebook, I printed it on the small one. But yeah, so. But yeah, it will be refined as we go through it, in particular with, you know, any of other changes
Mhm.
that might occur.
Mm. Okay, any questions, comments on this?
We ever have the need for more than one supervisor? Or place might get kind of busy.
So our big places have at least 2 supervisors. But as I am going through this flow chart, and as I'm thinking about the assisted voter and what that may raise, I think that, it may be, they need 3 supervisors. We can kind of, this will leads into this new law changes. The county to county transfer, which is a great thing. I mean, I think it is a very great new law, but will create a very specific step that our supervisors are going to have to
Yeah.
complete. And so, the assisted voter having to show ID, and if they don't show ID, the steps for that. So definitely, that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to hold this class in August, was to think about recruiting more supervisors who, and assigning them specific tasks. Maybe a supervisor who just does provisional ballots, and that is their own thing. A supervisor or a poll worker, they don't have to be a supervisor who just does address changes.
Mm.
And that's it. So for instance, at Central does more address changes than any of our other nations, up to 300 address changes. That they just have someone that's
That's all they do.
Or they're positioned behind the table or something, but that tag that says they're.
that, or the supervisor sends them to, yeah, so, and then, so that's definitely one of the things we're thinking about, because I think even our smaller sites are going to need a person who's trained just to do one particular thing.
Is that gonna, squeeze us a little bit? Oh, boy.
It is, so I already know that we're losing the supervisor at, Winslow and Greenland, Nazarene, and there may be 1 or 2 other. I lost the supervisor for Weddington Community right before the general election. So that definitely changes things too. We'll have new supervisors at the rodeo ground, or at civics, it used to be a rodeo. We'll have new supervisors there. So yeah, and it's a big learning curve.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's one of the reasons I want to start early on training our supervisors and not wait until the required training that we done in February. The more chances they get to come in and kind of visit with us, go over the materials, learn the materials, the better off we'll be. So yeah, so that's why we'll start heavily recruiting in August to make sure we have enough poll workers and supervisors.
Super.
And how is it advertised?
So we actually did a big push on our site last year. We got the media to help us do that. But also the VA had a big program, and I'll visit with the VA again to try and recruit veterans. And we got so many applications in from veterans wanting to sign up to poll workers. So we did really, really good for 2024 in the recruitment of poll workers. We had more than we needed, and we had to eventually be like, we're just gonna accept your application, but we don't have a space for you, we don't have a home for you. So I suspect that we'll have the same amount of luck that we had in 2024. So yeah, so not worried about the recruitment of poll workers, it's more the recruitment of the supervisor. Because a lot of people are willing to say, oh, I'm happy to do
The
that,
help, yeah.
but don't put me in charge. So yeah.
That's specialization there. And we need that. I mean, we need somebody who's really going to find this a job that they can excel. even though it's very short.
But yeah, but we'll start heavily into that, and, you know, poll worker training won't actually start until January. Supervisor training will be in February, but this, it's a scope. Okay.
What else?
That's it for this training update.
Okay. Now, that the Google changes, are these in order as?
These are in
you're on?
order, I
Okay.
have got them here.
Okay.
So these are also some things that we will need clarification from the State Board of Election Commissioners on.
Oh,
So for instance, the first one, the county to county transfer, which is Act 372, it's, this one is one we've asked for many years, we
Yeah.
talked about,
it's
But-
relatively short.
it is a relatively short, bill. The one thing that want specific guidance on and specific, direction from the SBEC is that, this talks about the voters' updated registration information must be received in the office of the county clerk before the polls close on election day. So we hope that that means that our supervisors are able to call to the county clerk's office. The county clerk is able to record their information. They will update them in Connect. And that's it. It's not the actual filling out
Mhm.
of a new voter registration card that has to get turned into the county clerk's office before the polls close. Because that would not work. Logistically, how would that happen? The only way you would have to be able to do that is if the voter went to the clerk's office.
Mhm.
So we are assuming that this means that we're able to make the phone call. The clerk can take the information, but we actually want true clarification from the state board
Okay.
that's what that means.
That's
not
the way
the-
it's being interpreted.
Right, and that's not physical cards that have to be turned into the county clerk's office. So yes. Now, there will be added steps for the county clerk in this scenario. Whenever we add a new voter in the poll book, we can only add them as provisional voter, which we don't want that because then their ballot won't go into the DS 200. So the clerk will actually have to take their information, look them up in Power Profile, make sure they are registered to vote in another county. Then they will have to go into Connect, which is the program connected to our poll books, make the changes and add them there before we can do this. So this is not something our poll workers can do with the polls. This will have to be done through the clerk and then transmitted out to the poll books. So that's why I was saying this may require a specialized poll worker, especially at our sites. Oak Grove is a perfect example. Oak Grove gets so many, and Elmdale get voters from Benton County who moved into the area, Washington County now live here. And so we know that they see a lot of these transfers. So, yeah.
Well, this is gonna probably require somebody in Becky's office to almost be completely dedicated to this. If it has to all be done right then before the voter can actually be considered a local voter.
It will be, and I mean, and I know her team is able to do it, but her team is also only a team of 8.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, so this definitely will be some coordination through Becky's office. For the general election 2024, we know we had at least over 150 provisionals that were cast for voters who were registered to vote in another county.
So
So,
over the whole, period of time, only voting and.
no, up until early vote until the Friday before, they were able to go and get it transferred.
Post
The
election.
Monday, so Saturday, Monday and Tuesday election day, so yeah. So most of them were done election day. So yeah. Yep. So this is a good bill, it's just gonna take
Get
some
used to it.
coordination.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then, the next one, which is Act 593, this is the assisted voter bill. this is the one that will require a voter to show an assessor to show.
Oh, that's.
So this one, those SBEC will make rules for this one, and we're waiting to see what those rules will be. We have also asked ES&S, because there are screens in the poll book, this is how Texas does it, that will allow us to do all of this in the poll book, which will make everything so much easier. So we're hoping that that is the path that the SBEC uses, is to allow the poll books for all of this. What's going to make it more complicated is when the voter or the assessor does not have an ID. Then what happens? They still will get to assist, but there will be a special for them to fill out. So that definitely is going to take a little bit of
So they're working on the promulgation of these rules
Mhm.
now.
they will
I
be.
hope.
And they should be, and there will also be a 30-day comment
that's right, yeah.
period before they become. What is going to kind of complicate things, and hopefully they are working on these rules right now, we will have a special election in November.
Ah.
So that means these rules need to be in place, because
Right.
these laws will be in place before we get to November.
Mm.
So, yeah, so hopefully, we'll get to see some of those soon, and they'll be here July 10th.
Oh, that's right.
So, hopefully some of these questions can be answered July 10th when they're here, and the SOS will be here as well. So that one is just kind of a wait and see.
Okay.
And then the next one, which is Act 458, which is the remake procedure. My understanding on this one will be that we will not be able to remake any ballots until the day after the election. And that includes UOCAVAs. So, for the primary, we had 30 UOCAVAs. So it's not a whole lot.
Right.
For the general election, we had well over 200, plus the ones that the DS 200 rejects of the absentees where they're folded and they won't do and all of that. So this definitely will require the commission to meet the Wednesday after. We will need to have to bring in a team to do the remakes. We also will have to, as we're processing an absentee ballots, keep track of the precincts for those UOCAVAs, because there will be enough of those ballots that could impact local races. So there definitely will be local races where we may not know who the true winner is because of provisionals and because of the UOCAVA remakes.
And we're gonna have to emphasize that when we give out numbers on election night.
Yeah, because we had that one race for the city council race where the number of provisionals could have changed the outcome of that race. And so we've already been working through, when we're doing the canvassing, keeping track of the precincts so that we will be able to say, these are the precincts that we're still have to do remakes.
Yeah.
These precincts are assigned to these districts, and we'll know where there could be a change in the outcome of the race. So that's definitely going to be a new accounting for us that we're going to have to do election night and release to the public as well. Because you don't want any surprises. You don't want anyone to, everyone needs to kind of go to bed that night and know, okay, there's 400 ballots still out there. How many of them are in this JP race or this city council race? And so that definitely is going to take some tracking on our end.
So you said then change that this created is that these ballots will have to be remade on a specific day, and what changed, how was it done before?
We did it election night. So our
And
absentee,
we're doing it now, when
we most likely will want to do it on Wednesday after the
after
election.
the election. And that's because, what was the reason
So-
they did that? I'm trying to figure out what they fixed.
Yeah, so
Fixed.
what happened was when they were, when the SBEC was doing the audits of the counties. There were a couple of counties where they did the audit of the, remake ballots.
Okay,
And they noticed that of the original ballot and the remade ballot, there were discrepancies. So when they remade the ballot, they didn't remake it faithfully to the original. Now,
that was the day that they do it, change that.
so what they're saying is that the election commission needs time to thoroughly be able to remake ballots and proof the remakes. So that you don't have the discrepancies.
When we prove when we might do
We do.
it, so I'm still not understanding how they,
Not all counties do
So
what we do.
we have been fortunate that we have a team
Mhm.
and our remakes go through the original person who creates them. Then there's a supervisor, which is Patty. Patty's very thorough.
Yeah.
Patty's, Patty doesn't let him get by, but sometimes she does, and then the commission. So
Right.
we have always had a program in place to do the remakes.
Yeah.
Um,
But the haste, I think, is what they're saying is on election night. It's a quick, we gotta get it done, blah, blah, blah. And so there's pressure there to make sure that you get it done, but it may not be correct.
right, and so I had hoped that, and maybe there still is, I don't know what the rules are going to be, that if you have a plan in place, you could still do it
Oh,
election day.
yeah.
Because we will have a team. And maybe you could stop at 6:30 or step, like, hey, or just let us do the Yoapolis, because we know how many Yoapolis they're gonna have. So that's a known number. But until they make the rules. We don't.
You
know, but-
mentioned that to
Yes.
SBEC, so,
But-
you
okay,
have.
Mhm. But I suspect that the goal that we will be having to do them the day after.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, but I mean, and we're fortunate that we have a team
We can
in
do it,
place.
I understand that we're
Yeah.
fortunate, we can do it, I'm just, you know me, I'm not real high
Um,
on changes to the law unless it's fixing something that needs to be fixed. And,
what this amounts to, from what I understand, is fixing it for all counties when it's only in
Sure.
some of these audits that they've discovered, they haven't been as cautious as they could be.
you know, one third grader messes up in class and goes out and everybody gets punished.
Is that you?
So, yeah, but it is, in some ways, this does take the pressure off, especially when you have the unknowns, like your DS 200 is rejecting ballots and you're trying to fix it. But there is also the part where you know how many Yoapolis you have, that's a
Yeah.
known number. And you have time during the day to remake those,
Well, I hope they'll consider that.
Yeah.
Way the bill is written, they may not be able to maybe lock in,
yeah.
no, for sure.
Could be the same for everybody. Yes.
Appreciate you saying nice things about me.
This will be one that we're having to wait on. But I do anticipate that this will add the Wednesday after the election for the commission to have to meet. I think my plan would kind of be for me to go ahead and bring a team in and do the remakes and have them remade and approved. It's open to the public can
Right.
see, then the commission come in. They proof
Yeah.
what we have already proved, and then we read them in, so that we have kind of a process
Right.
for it. But that would all be open to the public to be able to watch us do that.
Is this one of the bills that was on the SBDC's list or group of bills that they
So-
recommended?
It actually was not, it actually, came through the SOS's office, but it was one that they recognized when they started doing the audits.
Yeah.
there were several counties that had a mistake. Now, none of those changed the outcome of the election, so we're not talking about that. But yeah, so this actually came through the SOS's office. The next one, which is Act 846. This one, will require a new statement or, on the voter statement for absentee ballots. So that'll be just standard and they'll have to rework the statement. The other part of this bill, though, is that a voter who selects unavoidably absent will be required to have a witness signature on their voter statement. So that will change the voter statement. The question is, what happens if they don't have it? So what will be the process if they don't have a witness, but they were a voter who was voting because they were unavoidably absent? Those will have to wait and see what the SBC. gives
They're
us
gonna
guidance on
write
that.
rules around this one as well.
So I don't know if rules can be written around this one because all the other voter statement rejections are clearly stated in the law. If you don't sign, if your birthday is different, if your address is different, those are all written in law that those are to be rejected. If you don't include your ID, you have until the Monday following. Those are all set out in statute, that those are rejectable reasons or made provisional. This doesn't have any of that. So does that mean we make note of it? We just set it aside, but it still is countable? I don't. And so that will be
Do
one.
you see it again?
Yes. So yes. So, and that, will change how we canvass.
Yeah.
Because if we have to set it aside only for it to eventually be counted, that just doubles our work in the sense that you're having to, touch it twice. So. And then the last one is, early votes in cities over 15,000. This one requires us to have an early vote site in a city over 15,000. Of course, we already do. It's Springdale. The question is, I think this is saying that it's still an offsite early vote where the commission sets the hours and days and not a requirement of it, the 2 weeks and all of the same hours of the county clerk's office, but we will want clarification on that as well. Now Kim, our Benton County counterpart, had a question about this bill because Springdale is in both Benton and Washington County, but she only has about 5,000 people in her part of the county, maybe 6,000 people in her part of the county, but she doesn't have an early vote site in that Springdale area. Is she going to have to? What? I don't know.
Is it under the ones in her county or under, I would probably assume that she does.
No, so yeah, so that's gonna be a question, and we looked, hers, I think, is the only city that this would be a question for.
Okay.
So,
In the
yeah.
whole state?
Yeah.
Oh, my
Of
goodness.
the ones that are split between.
Yeah.
Between counties,
Wow.
so yeah, so that'll be definitely something I know that Kim's gonna have to. look
Yeah.
at. So. But those are the law changes, I think, definitely, those are gonna be the ones we want to ask about at that July 10th.
Okay.
Hopefully, and they may expand
When's it?
July 10th.
I may not be here.
You might avoid.
Yeah, okay, I did already say it, because I,
So.
Yeah.
Really long. Working to put it in.
okay, I may be out of town still.
That's all I have for those.
Okay. Okay, request for a new advisory from the State Board of Election Commissioners on the distance between voting
Yes,
booths.
okay.
I tripped over that, voting booths?
Yes, okay.
Wow.
So We have been listening to the state board meetings for the complaints. And because we're like, okay, why are people?
Hold on.
No,
How many meetings have they had on?
quite a few,
Oh,
quite a few. So,
Bunch about.
just various things, electioneering,
sounds a bit.
postings. One of them had to do with the distance between the machines, just a provisional ballot process, just all sorts of just different things. One of them was they couldn't find where the poll workers had signed their oath of office. So just all, I've been.
Don't you have a
surprised.
file for that?
So we do, but
Okay,
for
that's what I
whatever
thought.
reason, that day at that polling location,
Wasn't.
they couldn't find where they'd signed their oath of office. We put it on our poll workers' pay sheets because
Yeah,
they're
right.
considering that, but still, we're like, okay, why are people being written up? Why are people complaints? And then the SBC investigates. And then they either write letters of caution, warning, instruction, and in some places, they have decertified the entire
Yeah,
election commission or the coordinator or the poll workers. So some have been very serious. But one of them that we listened to was the distance between the voting machines.
Yeah.
And the SBEC has an advisory that the distance between the voting machines should be 6 feet, and that's the actual machines itself.
okay.
Now, when this advisory was written, it was written in 2015, when we had the old Ivotronics, and there's a picture in here of what the old Ivotronic looks like. How it has the big open kind of wings, basically, and doesn't provide a lot of privacy. The other part of the equation is that the normal cord that the express vote comes with is right at 6 feet.
Oh.
So if you use it to daisy chain though, and how you have it set up, then it makes the machines not 6 feet, because if you're using the outside of the machine to the outside of the machine.
Right.
So we would like to request that because we have new voting equipment, because the privacy screens are so much better
Yeah.
than what they used to be, that they change their advisory to allow a shorter distance between the machines. Because otherwise we have 10 of these that are long cords.
Uh-huh.
We will have to order cords for 150 express votes. Because we just don't have enough to be able to daisy chain. So in essence, we have kind of, been doing our best, but if they're going to come in and write letters of caution, letters of warning, we want to make sure that we're, following everything as closely as we can. So we would request a shorter distance that would allow us to use the cords. And this is going to be county statewide.
Yeah.
All the counties are struggling with this.
Where have they told us that you have to measure from?
From,
Said the edge or something?
yeah, from the edge to the edge. And we would like,
In between,
mhm,
not the leading edge.
the outside to the outside. We would like to measure, and on this front picture, you can kind of see, well,
Screen to screen.
screen to screen,
Center.
the center of the screen to the center of the screen. And that gives you 6 feet, or if you were allowed to do a shorter distance, because the privacy of the express votes is so much greater than what we
Yeah.
had in 2015 when it was originally written.
It has. You said there's a request for a new advisor.
That's what I would like us
Oh,
to
okay.
request.
This has not been one of the complaints from,
It was, a county got a letter of, not advisory, no, instruction, a letter of instruction. On the placement of the machines.
okay,
And so I'm like, and we know we're a county that we struggle with that. We're not able to do that. If we are going to be where we're measuring these. We're gonna need more boards. But the best plan of action would be to change the distance.
Yeah.
You're not
So
really changing this, still 6 feet, you're just changing.
I'm changing the
You're
placement.
gonna pick a point, and it doesn't matter where the point is.
Yeah,
She's
right.
always on the same point. So that you've got a 6 foot.
And that's what the law specifies, or is that a statute?
So the law talks about that, that we have to provide secrecy.
Right.
And there's a section of the law that talks about, about a 6 foot privacy, but what that 6 feet privacy is talking about is that no one else can be within 6 feet of the machine unless they're a poll worker or voting. So I think that the law.
It's not talking about the voter that's next to.
Right. Yeah, so I think there's room for a new advisory. Especially with the new voting equipment, to allow us, to kind of change that distance.
Does the SBEC have a notebook of these advisory standards that you can refer to? I mean, this is something new to me.
So this is, I believe it's in the poll worker training manual, and, but I also believe it's in, the commissioner manual.
Oh,
But it's probably one of those things that they talk about really
Right.
fast
Right.
and they don't hit on, so yeah. But I think, I don't know where it's at in that, I know where. So, but. I think what I would request is that we requested the advisory.
so that we can follow what the new advisory says. I would suggest we don't need 8-foot cords. We just need some specificity on how you take your 6-foot cord and,
And I think what we need is what suggested was basically center to center, and
yeah,
same edge to same edge.
Yeah.
Because we're measuring from the right edge of this one to the left edge of this one, there are 6 feet, we're actually adding the 6 feet to do that as if for the machine.
mhm.
Between each one, I mean, that's, we need a center to center.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that still provides 6 feet and still provides plenty of privacy.
right.
I mean.
Yeah.
You know, cause I went back to look to see what our old iPhone looked like, and I can see why. You know, with the way that screen is laid out, it doesn't provide the privacy that we have.
How are those set up?
So we set those up yesterday using the long cord, and those are 6 feet. Those are
Feet, oh,
from the edge to the
Side to
edge.
side.
Yes, so. Yeah. So, but this doesn't have the advisory in it. Which is this piece of paper that I have in your.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, are there other advisories that need to be updated too?
There's only this one.
Oh,
Yeah, I like, I went on there, cause I wanted to. I am asking this question of the SBEC. And so when I went to look at their advisory, that's when I noticed that it was from 2015.
Yeah.
Which is the old voting equipment, it was kind of when they did this, so.
Okay, and so essentially what you want is a new advisory that allows us to measure on the same guidelines with the new equipment and doesn't put us in jeopardy of an instruction or a complaint or what. I mean, you have people that are measuring these.
So they have had, basically they have election monitors who
Oh,
are going
yes.
to the counties, and they have a tape measure
Okay.
and they were measuring.
I'm sorry to tell you, this says must be spaced at least 6 feet apart from the next machine. That probably means it's, that the advisory is saying this.
That's what the
That's the
advisory.
reason you're saying
Mhm.
we need a new advisory. But part of this goes back to the 6 foot privacy zone around voting booths to be observed, and that's in law. It's got a ACA 75310 A2 C whatever.
So it matters how are you measuring the 6 feet?
Yeah.
And that's what we're asking to be able to measure from center to center.
Okay,
With our.
in the case that that would not be acceptable, how much are these 8-foot cords gonna cost for 100, what did you say?
150
150?
machine, it'll cost us, close to, $1,100. So, yeah. And it also will require a very specific setup, because the cords have to go in a very specific way and all of that. So, yeah, so it will.
So Plan B.
Yes, yes, and that's why if we can't get a new advisory, we will get the cords, we will make the plan. You know, but it's just. As we've been listening, you know, we're wanting to make sure we're following all guidelines that we can, and we don't want to, you know. Fall short.
Trip up on something as insignificant as this.
Yeah.
When you're following what you think is right and it may not be acceptable.
Well, and the fact that ESNS,
Right,
this is the cord they provided
Yeah.
to us.
that's
You
a good
know,
point.
and
Well,
so,
All the
But-
newer ones now, though, are coming with this.
Oh,
but,
are they
They
really?
are.
but
the-
most
we buy.
counties though have this.
Oh,
I think the older ones came with those, but
Yeah.
I've noticed the last few ones we bought, when I've taken them out and put them together, they come with the longer
That's
ones.
why we have 10.
So I'm thinking that maybe this may been a pressing issue that
Yeah.
it may have forced the SNS to have to provide longer ones possibly. So that may have been a telling story in itself too, of the law or how it's interpreted.
Yeah,
Does it affect how you set up the voting centers?
Yep.
Mhm.
It will affect how many machines we can get into the footprint. It will definitely impact the footprint. So, yeah. It will impact any of our smaller polling locations that don't have a lot of space. Unity, out on, one of our early vote sites, Unity, it will impact there for sure. Medical arts will impact that location. And those are the big ones that kind of, you know, Elmdale's a gymnasium.
right, right,
And
but
we
that's
can-
still,
we
I
can-
mean,
Farmington as well.
you start to
Farmington, we are.
squeeze them
Yeah.
like that and.
Yeah, so that's why we're asking for a request of a new advisory, just because I think the new machines offer more privacy than the old machines did.
So we're not the only county facing this issue,
Oh,
it's not the
no.
entire state.
It's the entire state is facing this issue and, you
Do
know.
they know it yet?
It's a no, well, it's a known, it's one of those things that's kind of known, like
Oh.
every county is doing their best to set them up the way they
Right.
can. But if someone's coming in with a tape measure, we might be 5.5 feet.
Ah.
You know, that county could have been
Yeah.
5.5 feet
Right.
and not 6 feet. And so I think that's the pressing issue is there any leeway? Is there any room for, you know, to avoid getting a letter of instruction, a letter of caution kind of thing? Some grace, basically.
Okay, well, seems like,
I'm just catching up with what you pointed out about this stuff. Says, if a person is not a poll worker and is not casting a ballot, he or she shall not be within 6 feet of the voting booths unless authorized by election judge necessary to keep order and enforce the law. So we could accept that. But it doesn't say anything about the space between voting booths. You kind of take that as, yes, that it was intended,
Mm,
doesn't seem to be stated specifically. Obviously, here we're limited on the rules. You know, I mean,
So this part too goes back to, the, poll watchers.
yeah.
This is also basically, it's kind of written for poll watchers. It's saying if you're a poll watcher, you can't be within 6 feet, which we don't want poll watchers being within 6 feet. But if you've got a group of voters who are voting,
Next to each other.
can they be closer than 6 feet? And I would think they can.
Based on this, it doesn't, I mean, if someone is voting, if someone voted in this booth, someone voted in this booth, both those people are excluded by that line.
Mm,
As I read it, and I'm not a lawyer, so it's an old,
But that's why I think there could be a new advisory.
yeah,
I think an advisory that deals with that specific issue would be added to, or this would be added to, you know, make an exception for everybody that's voting. As long as they can't see the next one, they should be okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've already took the long one.
No, well, I had to look at it again because I wanted to make sure that's 6 feet, but the fact that it specifically says the voter,
yeah,
it doesn't apply to the voter. It is really targeting poll watchers, because you don't want poll watchers within 6 feet.
no,
Ten is little, not to create the problem that you got.
Mm.
Yeah.
Good luck convincing SBC.
Well,
You don't, you haven't figured out yet, I'm not a big fan of this.
so the question also too, an advisory, is that an advisory is
advisory, so, yeah.
So anyway, so that will be a request, kind of already laid the groundwork,
Okay,
but I think we could probably get a lot of other counties
to go on with,
to
yeah.
go along with
yeah.
that. I know Benton County would, yeah.
Do they have a period when they will respond to you report?
I haven't
according to
made
this?
a formal request,
Oh.
other than these images that you saw that
Yeah.
are in here. I had sent that to Chris.
Oh, okay,
And
so
just-
he knows it's in the pipeline for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, it's got that on the January, or July 10th meeting.
if we ask the question. So I don't know that it's on their agenda, so I don't know, but we definitely, that can be something that we can bring up.
press, okay. All right, next item, early vote locations.
Yep. So,
I should have been that 2026
yes,
early vote locations.
yes, so the information that I've provided today is just the primaries. That's where I think the big questions are going to be, have to be asked about what sites are open for the primary. Primary elections have much lower voter turnout than the general does. They also have much less early vote than the general does too. It's kind of odd that they don't have as much early vote, but traditionally they don't. I am not asking the commission to make any type of decision today, but I want us to start thinking about the early vote for the primary election. The first page shows the breakdown of the early vote sites and the turnout weekly for week 1 and week 2, and then the total. You can see that some places perform a lot better than other places. So the question becomes, which sites do we open? Do we open them for 1 week, 2 weeks, the limited, that type of thing? And if you'll see, I think our early vote numbers, 2022, if we're looking at the first page, early vote for 2022, we had a open governor seat and an open county judge. So turnout was greater for that primary election, than what you see in 2018, when you had a sitting governor and you had a sitting county judge. That, that makes a difference.
It's significant.
Yes, it is very significant. So when we get into 2026, we will have a sitting governor and we will have a sitting county judge. Now, whether the governor gets primaried or not, I don't know. I haven't seen anything for the governor to be primaried. We have seen that the county judge will be primaried. But will that have the same amount of draw for voters to come out as when you have a completely open seat? We also know too that the Democratic primary for Washington County typically doesn't have any contested races. So what will that turnout look like? So I think our voter turnout will obviously be somewhere in the middle of what 2022 and 2018 reflects. But even if you look at 2024, when you had presidential,
Yeah.
that's still even less than 2. So this, I want us to, start making a plan for our early vote, sites.
Anything that you be changing or?
So if you look at the second page. So the second page includes all the sites we had open for this gym. So American Legion, we had open for 2 weeks. This would be one that maybe we want to just have it open for 1 week because of the 2 weeks, they only have 257 cast. Now, granted, this was the very first time we'd ever had the American Legion open for the primary election, but still, would we get as many voters in 1 week as we would spread out over the 2 weeks? Christchurch and Christian Life Cathedral were both general election additions to early vote. They performed very well in the general election, but I don't necessarily think that we need them for the primary. But that definitely is something we can discuss. The other thing that we also have to keep in mind is the weather.
Yeah.
We have been having in either the
Strange
first or
weather.
the second week of early vote, a snowstorm, which has shut the county down for 4 days, which will impact
Yeah.
early vote. Civic Center, so basically, if you see the 2 yellow ones are American Legion and Civic Center, those are ones I have questions about, the length that we have them open, should we have them open? And then Christchurch, Christian Life Cathedral, and Walton Art Center were 3 that we added for the general, but I don't know that we necessarily have them for the primary. Then Farmington and Nazarene were ones that we added. That says we don't need to change that. Farmington and Nazarene were ones that we added for the primary, and they performed well. They were only open for 4 days. We added an extra week for them for the general election, but I don't think we necessarily need to do that for the primary. And so for instance, like if you look at Sonora, they did 109 votes just in the second week they were open, and they were open for 2 days,
Oh.
2 days, which equaled kind of what we did at Legion. So there's some kind of,
Yeah.
things for us to look at, but I think American Legion is definitely one we want to keep, but the question is 2 weeks of why for them. Civic Center, the biggest problem with the Civic Center is, we can only have it like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, because Thursday and Friday or Saturday, they have events. So you just don't get as many voters
Well, maybe-
Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Maybe by the end of the year, there will be some other places that we can scout.
And definitely, we will do some scouting to see if there's something else there. The Civic Center is a great election day site. And it worked well for us for the general election. We just need to visit with them about what they might have available things.
there's I just talked to somebody about this last night. There's a senior center going in Springdale.
Yes, and it will be amazing when it's
Yes.
done. I agree.
They're saying August perhaps.
So, we used to be at the John
Right,
Housing
right.
Center. And then it got too small in essence. It just was overwhelmed, the parking was bad, but now that they've redone it, I agree. So maybe it's something for us, definitely. We'll take a look at John Powell. Yeah.
Are they calling it John Powell?
Oh, I don't know, but I know that's what it used to be.
Okay,
So, yeah.
I'm
I'll
not sure.
And see the senior center. Cause that would be a great, and it's kind of over in that area. too, where
It's
the
right by the
American is.
airport.
Oh, it's right,
It's-
oh, that's even better.
I mean, like, it looks like it could be across from the Jones Center, but I'm not. Tom's shaking his head yes. So, have you been in it, Tom?
That's the building that's several stories high that they built.
No, it's not, it's like 2 stories.
Yeah, I think it's 2 stories.
Oh, well, gosh, that's down where the rodeo, and the rodeo used to be.
Yeah, that's right.
Amazing for us.
Right.
So I will look at that and then get in touch with the city
Yeah.
about the senior center. Cause normally those are run through the city.
Mhm.
So maybe that replaces the civic center in the essence of early vote, but even election day, I don't know, so.
Be terrific. Go on, I interrupted you.
No, so those are kind of just some of the thoughts for us to think about. Walton Art Center, I think definitely, it's not, you know, is a good location for us for the general, but not really
Yeah.
for the primary. Now, Christ Church and Christian Life Cathedral for the general did great. They really did. Do we want to try and do something with them for the primary? I don't know, with so few voters coming out, I think that other places. Part of opening up Christ Church and Christian Life Cathedral is try and pull some of the traffic away from the courthouse. But the courthouse, only had, did around 3,500, 4,000. So it's not that much traffic at the courthouse. So, yeah.
They would consider, is that general construction, because they're building new there, so you, construction workers. How do you spend it over there, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think the same can be said for a lot of different places around town. The building that's going on is creating roadblocks. Which would, I mean, we ran into that in downtown or in Fayetteville with
Trinity
Trinity,
Methodist.
yeah.
And, you know, there's also a question, skipping ahead to election day, I don't have that on the agenda, but Giovanni Richardson Center
Right.
would be open, you know, time, I don't know, you know, they have a target date of 2025, but
Target dates are not real reliable, I
you
found.
know, so they're definitely, you know, I will have on the agenda our election day sites, but, they tend to not be as changeable as early voting.
and when do we have to have a deadline to determine?
So, the deadline for that is, I believe it's January 2nd is the deadline for that. So we have time, but in the same sense, we don't have
Yeah.
time because we have to make sure we have the supervisors, the budget, all of those different kind of things.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
We're talking about highlighting the American Legion and Civic Center both in Springdale. As a potential to, close down based on the current.
Not closed down, but do we want to have it for 2 weeks?
Okay, based on turnout numbers, you're talking about not using them for the full 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Um, We have some in Fayetteville that were pretty similar in numbers. One week, would they have equaled American Legion if they were up in the second week? Like the University of Arkansas, live speech and physical therapy, that type of thing. You know, American Legion is, as we know, fairly new space that we've used for a couple of years.
Mhm.
Um, Is it true or not that we build momentum in a space the longer we keep it open, or is that be a fair statement and typically or not?
We do, so for, if I look at. Now, for the general, they did 1823,
Which one?
the American Legion, so obviously for the general, I'm just. As I'm looking through it, I'm just looking to see, would it be advantageous for us to do 1 week or 2 weeks there? Or if the senior center,
Well, that's it, if we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at that.
and maybe that makes a determination, so these are just questions that I had. So for instance, the Springdale Public Library, we were only there for, I think, 3 days and they performed well. The Springdale Public Library is hoping to be a permanent, they would like to be an election day site for us. But construction. I don't know when their
Right.
construction happens or not too.
Different, so I think there's I don't know if we've ever thought about commission about how do we, open new sites? How long do we give them to start, showing?
Mhm. Yeah,
And if we decide to close them, how do we go about doing that? Do we keep them open long enough to give everybody that comes in the vote a note that says, next time we're not gonna be here, it'll be over here at the senior center?
Well, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, I'm just. Early vote for the primary, and like I said, this is not general election.
Yeah.
Is, because we also talked last year about, Elkins and Westport. Being open for the 2 weeks versus was 1 week, so, so those definitely, are just some thoughts for us to.
I know that there's a cost. I'm gonna go balance some, I'm for having space if the space is a good space, and if it's a space that the people there want us there, I'm in favor of having them open unless they want me with them.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of starting up 2 years later, starting
yeah,
back down, so, and the only complaint I've ever had from anybody about which ones we have open for early voting had to do with Springdale not having enough.
yeah, that's right, that's. right.
So I have to listen to that too, because that's my constituency. So, just put that out there as part of the conversation.
Well, and American Legion wants us there, and we love American Legion, and they've got a great crew. I'm just, like I said, when I sit down to look to see what is our voter turnout, what does it look like? American Legion is an easy one for us because, they take care of us. We don't have to tear the stuff down, set back up. So definitely, they're a great location for us. And like I said, this is a primary discussion and not a
Exactly.
general.
Better to have it than.
Yeah, yeah. And so, but the senior center, I think, would offer us a
Right.
great, in addition to, I would,
Yeah,
you know,
but as a workaround from the civic center perhaps.
yeah, because I think the civic center, if we were only to be able to be there like that Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, you just don't get voters, like, they vote Thursday, Friday.
Yeah,
You know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, unless it's the first Monday. But the way the primary works is the first Monday is a holiday, so we're not open. The other thing that I debated too is, what if I pitch the wrong week for us to be open and then we have a snowstorm? You
Yeah,
know, so
yeah.
I'm like, then I'm kind of like, okay, then we have no
there,
time
right.
there. So I just, like I said,
But let's just think about more options, as you drive around town. Look for spots that would be potential.
I would love for someone to build a community center on Mount Comfort Road.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's
Is,
what
is there any building going on out that way? Oh,
No, and Unity is great, and they are
Yeah.
a wonderful, wonderful, host for us. They're appreciative of us, they were great, it's just tight
yeah.
in there. You know, so,
So what is the criteria for polling site?
so ideally, ADA compliant, first off, parking. The size inside, enough space for us to set up, the willing to host us.
Yeah, that's a big part.
Access, you know, bathrooms being big enough for handicap, you know,
Mhm.
just all those different things going, right?
It's
So
all pretty,
If you
now,
You also
find
need
a good
adequate,
spot,
outlets
you'll know what to do with
Yeah.
it.
now Elmdale, we will have to ask the question of Elmdale. They, in 2024 were a warming center, during the primary election, and we had to move to a different place on the same campus. I suspect that we will have to be in that smaller space, because even though they're not a warming center every day, they only do it when the temperature drops, but we can't be moving our equipment. So I suspect that Elmdale will be in that smaller cathedral if they're willing to host us in that space again. So that'll be is a change for us to think about.
another big issue, are you able to park your stuff in there and leave?
Yeah.
Or do you have to leave? Friday night worship?
Logistics.
Yeah. Yeah, so like for instance, at Nazarene and Farmington, those are places where we have to tear down and set back up, and then that adds to our team's stress as well. But they're good locations. I thought Nazarene and Farmington both did great.
Yeah.
And so, in Farmington, we were able to kind of not have to completely tear down. But Nazarene, we have to completely tear down and then reset back up. The one nice thing, if at Elmdale, if we're in that smaller space, it gets to stay up. We don't have to tear down, like for instance, at Elmdale, we would have to tear down twice. We would have to tear down for Wednesdays, something, I forget that they have, and then tear down Saturday and then go back in. A question I had too for us for Tawny Town. If you've noticed, I've got a yellow on that first Tuesday.
Mhm.
That is their city council meeting,
Right.
and we set up to tear down at 4:30. Part of me is thinking, you just start voting there on Wednesday. And
Avoid that.
instead of tearing down to set up. And then obviously question marks on being open on Saturdays at some of those places. So for the primary 2024, we went ahead and closed both Saturdays at Elkins and Westport. There were just not enough, there was very little voter turnout. Is that something we want to do again? We kept Prairie Grove open on the Saturdays, but you know, so just thoughts. for us.
Well, we've got time to assess some of these and, I mean, you know, it's still gonna be, well, we have a winter storm warning in the first week or something.
Yeah.
But, there will be, things that we just don't know, but we can move forward with, this as a possible framework to build them. Item 7.
Okay. So that is the I voted sticker contest. We still get so many compliments of the I voted sticker
Yeah.
that we had, and it is really gonna be hard to want to replace the one that we have. But, I do think that we want to make this a thing that we do, you know, every 2 years. It just so happens that in 2026 it'll be the 250th year of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So I feel like this is designing an I voted sticker plays into that whole, you know, the independence of the United States and, you know, freedom and liberty and voting and all of that sort of stuff, just all goes hand in hand. So I want to try and set up our I voted sticker contest where it coincides with July 4th, whether that's the day we ended, that's the day, or not on the 4th, but we either announce right before or right after so that it all kind of plays in. When we hosted the Cub Scouts here yesterday, Alexis had asked the librarian from Elkins to come. And then I went ahead and asked Linda, who's the head of the library system for Washington County, to come. And we had a great conversation and they're super excited to get to help us with this. When we did this in 2024, we were late to the game. It was still successful, but we were a little behind because they set their summer programs just like we do. They plan ahead, so we couldn't get into their summer programs. But I have a meeting, hopefully in August with them to get in their summer programs for 2026 to help us promote the I voted sticker contest and make it even more successful than what we did. So I definitely, you know, think that that's something for us. We'll start planning for that this year for us to implement next year. So the primary will be March 3rd. We will have a runoff March 31st. Most likely we will. There's 3 candidates declared for Secretary of State. There's possibly 3 candidates for county judge. So us not having a runoff is, you know, so we will be tired. So, but I want to have everything kind of planned for us so that starting mid-April or May, we can implement the I voted.
Well, what you could do is use the stickers that we have now for the
For the
primary
primary, yes.
and begin to push in that regard and then launch the new sticker shortly after.
For the general.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can promote it at the polling locations
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a lot we can tie into it, but we'll start making the plans for that this year,
Okay.
working through the libraries. And kind of, you know, build on our success.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm glad we've done it for one round because boy, it gives you so many things that you can, the insight of what we did and how we can build on that.
And tying it in with the signing of the Declaration of Independence, I think that will make that special. I know that the state has actually, they passed legislation or, you know, kind of pushing, you know, a plan to celebrate this, and the county filed or passed a resolution last Thursday, the same kind of thing in support of this. So this will be our part of supporting, you know, activities around the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
So you'll just keep us informed about what's next after you get some info on it. All right, other business.
So I had meant to, the budget. We will have to do our budget sometime soon. I think July 15th is when I have to have it turned in.
Oh.
But when the county sends out our budget information, they look at 2025, but we know 2024 is the numbers we need to look at. So I will start to get this built out. These numbers that I have here for 2024 is what we actually spent. That's not what I had
That
requested,
wasn't the budget. Actual spend.
actual spent.
Okay.
What did we budget?
We were close to this. I felt like we were within like 10,000 or whatever of this, and it was. I'll run those numbers for you to see what we had initially asked.
Okay, so is this the numbers that the county has supplied you with in order
Yes.
for you to build your budget
Yeah.
off of it?
Yeah, and this is what we actually
Okay.
spent. Of course, the biggest budget item we have is poll worker costs
Mhm.
and staffing costs. Those will go up somewhat because we will have a countywide runoff. So that would be an additional cost inside of the salaries part-time. Salaries full-time, they have moved our positions to full-time before, well, qualifying, when I have staff members who qualify for insurance, that moves them into the full-time.
Gotcha.
And so they have passed a new, county handbook asking for those full-time positions to be at 40 hours. So my team will move to 40 hours.
Oh,
So that will impact the budget there as well.
Okay.
So that number obviously will be different, than what we've seen in the past. And then, the only other big ticket item, I think I'm gonna request that's not kind of in line with what we spent in 2024, is I would like our buildings to be badged. Right now, we have key access, which means anyone with a key can get in now, not that there's a lot of people with keys, but. I think that our building here, I think our building over, there need to be badged. I think that way we can track who has been in and out of our buildings. Not that anything has ever happened in these buildings, not that they're not secure, but I do think that's a layer of security for elections that we need.
Can that be done with all this other stuff that we're gonna hopefully get?
So that's gonna be outside of my budget.
Oh,
So-
that's right.
So
That's
the
not-
things that I've requested for the building will come out of buildings and grounds,
Okay.
but to request to have it badged, I think that would come out of our budget. So I think it'll be a cost of, close to $25,000. It's expensive.
What is that? I mean, we've got the handicap entrance over here, which would have to be part of that.
We would want
The
these
doors here.
three there's a back
Oh,
door
there's a
here
back.
too. So we would want these 3 doors badged, and
Okay.
then over there, there's 2 doors.
Okay.
So, but I do think it is a worthwhile expense to
Yeah.
ask for.
Yeah.
In 2024, we bought new voting equipment. I do not think we need to buy more voting equipment, only because we don't know
Exactly.
what will be the future for voting. There's a push to go to pre-printed paper ballots at the polls.
Yeah.
So if that were to happen, that's gonna have to be a completely different request for budgets.
Pre-printed means that you couldn't come in, even though our equipment can print a paper ballot now, you couldn't print it on the spot, you'd have to have stacks of
So
pre-printed.
you could do it that way, or, see that little printer that's on that little black stand? We could purchase one of those for every single tablet that we have, just, and we could print those paper ballots, the traditional paper ballots that everyone had been talking about at the polls. It would still allow us to do vote centers, otherwise we would have to go back to precinct-based voting. And so, that would be a significant cost.
Yeah.
That would be
And Yes, so but with that in mind, and knowing that 2026 is a non-presidential year, I don't think we need voting equipment. So in lieu of the voting equipment that we normally ask for, the small equipment, I think I'm gonna ask for the building to be fast.
Yes,
I think that's
as a
definitely.
trade-off.
Yeah, and the other significant item that I'm gonna ask for, and it's actually a lot cheaper than what we had been quoted. A secondary VOD computer. If you remember earlier this year, I had to buy a new one kind of in a rush. Because we only had one VOD computer. And so if that were to go down during absentee printing, we would be in trouble. So I do think we need a backup. When I had initially presented that quote to the commission, it had a $2,000 charge in it for them to come and set it up for us. He did it over the phone, so I called ESNS and I said, I don't think I have to pay $2,000. Because Lacey and I just, yeah, Debbie and I did it over FaceTime, basically. And we set it up, so they took that off, so it actually
good.
ended up being a lot cheaper than it was, so we definitely can afford to get another VOD. Computer for us. But those are I mean, obviously, those will add, but I think our budget will still be very similar to what we spent in 2024.
Can we go ahead and plan B for any extra extension cords to add that into?
So that will be, we always have a lot of extension cords that we purchase. The other thing I think we need to, and Ron will probably agree with this, our signs
Where they
are
start.
looking pretty ratty.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're,
Yeah, we need some more signs.
yeah, they're,
And I need to replace some.
yeah.
And that also includes more of the actual rebar too, which those things are hard to find, but when I do find them, they're expensive.
Yeah.
So those, if you'll see this general supplies is almost $61,000 and $33,000. We kind of, that's where those monies will be budgeted in there, along with ballots. I don't think, Ron, I will need you to look and see how many stylists we have. That's always a cost. But a 2026 election is never as big as a presidential year, so we may not need as many stylists, we may not need as many ballots, and those different things, but yeah.
Okay.
So we will want to set a meeting for the commission to look at the budget. I have to turn it in July 15th and then meet with the judge for it, but it won't go before, I think, the quorum court until September.
Oh,
So I'm not sure.
okay, so that being the case, you would want this to be finalized before you meet with the judge, or?
Yeah, if the commission wants to do that, or I can work through the numbers, meet with the judge and make sure that, because their department is the department that will oversee this, make sure the judge is in line with what I have, and then the commission can meet to see if there's
Okay.
any changes.
I
Is that,
kind of feel like that's probably a
Okay.
better way
all right?
to do it at this point.
And I've kind of given you the parameters
Right.
of what I'm asking for. I
Yeah.
don't, I tried to sit down and think if there was any other odd requests. I knew the cords would be a request, the badging of the doors.
How long would it take to get the badging done if we get that for?
I don't think it'll take very long, so I would anticipate, that, the budgets are approved January and I can, ask to be kind of for the
Before the primary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that include the software with it too? The badging?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it includes all of that, because I had IT, that's who will be responsible for getting it contracted and doing all of that, so yeah.
So we badged the store over here. That means you're gonna have to do something special, when you know that you're gonna have company.
Yes,
I would a meeting of people will attend.
Yeah, we have a doorbell out there right now, and so we can do that where we answer the door, or I can talk with IT about, is there a way to?
Are we ever gonna get these doors changed
Yes.
out to glass plate?
Actually, I talked with Angela about some different things. So the garage door she talked about, 1, 2, 3, that fourth panel up, actually putting glass in there.
Oh, just in the fourth panel?
Yeah, I know. The door that you showed me.
I want that.
I know, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous, but
It's beautiful.
it is beautiful.
I mean, it's so modern.
Yes, but
It would bring us up to a different age and it would also be very useful.
yes, but
You need to go back.
I do, I do.
Split the difference with the buildings and grounds.
Yeah. And then I also talked to Angela too, the double doors obviously are going to have to be changed out to a push door. But, we talked about, if they can't do like the store doors, just doing, glass around the door, so, yeah.
Glass pane.
Yes, so we have been discussing that, the lights and all of that.
Yeah.
I sent Angela a list
Okay.
of the different things. Those will obviously either be partially in this year's budget, but most likely in next year's budget, but that has been a discussion.
Speaking of which, and we're getting far afield here, but how are we doing on this year's budget? Do we have money that we could pour into some of that?
Not for those
Okay.
budgets, but I am a hoarder of the money, so I know things are.
I understand.
We still have shelving that we need to purchase
Oh,
for in
okay.
there. And then a couple of other things, but I will have money to do all of the things. We need to order more tables, and chairs and for us to be able to do, training
Yeah.
in here and all of that. So that will eat up that, but those costs are buildings and grounds costs. I know.
Well, let them do.
I know.
Like those doors.
I know, they're beautiful. And we've also requested to have a kitchen and
Oh,
another
that's right, yeah.
bathroom built as well. So yeah.
Now, is that in our budget or is
That's
that
in there.
buildings and
Yeah,
grounds?
that's in there,
Okay.
cause that's like a 30,000
Yeah.
plus kind of budget, so yeah.
Are they
So
gonna,
if you see our little budget that I have for this year, it's teeny tiny.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah.
but
So-
I'm thinking, well, if we've got the money, let's do it now.
Yeah, I only have, that's teeny tiny.
Yeah.
little bits that I.
Well,
have, so.
Once we get the key thing taken care of, our building is hardened, then
Yeah,
no issues. Unless somebody comes in with a flamethrower or something.
right. So, yeah. So,
I'm thinking ahead, you know?
so, but I agree with you on the glass. It would be really nice
Oh, my
to see when
goodness.
someone walks up
Yeah,
to the
Yeah.
door. So yeah. So,
wait a minute. So you're saying the third across or the third down?
1, 2, 3, from the bottom, it would be the fourth one. But if they do glass around those doors.
Oh,
I'll be
that's,
able to see.
okay.
Yeah, okay.
I would go for the third one up.
Put your ring doorbell out there.
Yeah, so that's good to see.
That's
Yeah.
true, yeah. you
and
can
for,
do
are they
that.
gonna do anything about that step up though too?
Yes, that's all requested.
So I was like, man, if they're gonna, we're gonna have to push the doors out, I could easily
It's-
see people
yeah.
pushing out and face.
Yeah.
planting.
Yes,
Yeah.
that,
It's a real bad
Yeah.
yeah,
situation.
Angela came over and we visited.
Oh, good.
About the different things.
And do we have a sign for this building from the main road?
But
No.
Well, yes,
Yes,
you do.
that little one.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
there is one. Yeah, and the arrow now points to us. It used to point to them, but now. it
Oh,
points to
yeah.
us. So they did
Okay.
that, yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right, so back to the budget, where were we?
Well, we're working on maybe a date for.
Oh, yeah,
So, yes, so I will turn my budget in on the 15th, but I don't know when I will meet with the judge. So they haven't set those.
oh, and that's why it's not gonna be dealt with until September. 'Cause
Right.
It's gonna take a while
Right.
for him to go through all that.
So if you want to just.
Leave
Meet
it up in the air.
or, I mean, that's up to, we can meet after I
We
turn it
don't,
in.
we can't set on a date that's gonna be, a date, I think we'll have to wait.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
that's
right, okay.
And, do we have any other items that we need to cover in the meantime?
For, meeting wise?
Yeah, meeting wise.
No, I don't think so. I think July 10th.
Okay, yeah.
And then, I do have an update to the calendar.
Oh,
Yeah. But, budget wise, I can't think of anything else other than what I mentioned that would be odd from what we, requested in the past.
And, do it.
Yes, so Greenland is in the process of calling for a special election. They, filed their ordinance for the annexation. It has to be heard at 3 consecutive meetings, so June, July, August. I suspect when we'll have that information, so we will have a special election. Tuesday, November the 18th.
And
when is, Thanksgiving?
So that's the thing I wanted to let you know is I looked. We can certify that election at 15 days and not 10, which means that we can meet Monday, December the 1st, instead of the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
So that would be a change for us to meet to certify that election. Would be December the 1st.
that's why you got it, yeah.
That's what I've got it in yellow.
Okay.
Now, one of the questions I am going to have to visit with Catherine, our county judge, or our county attorney about, and Brian is. If there is an overseas ballot, it has 10 days to come back, which is that Friday after Thanksgiving. Does the county clerk's office have to be open to receive the ballot if it were to come in? Normally the courthouse is closed, but mail runs on the Friday after Thanksgiving. So, and that's the deadline for a ballot to be received. So I'm gonna visit with, I moved our meeting because we don't have to certify until,
But if
15
we need
days
to receive
after.
a ballot,
Well, that would be Becky's office.
yeah,
So the question is, if there is an overseas one, would Becky's office have to be open for the mail to come so she could receive that overseas ballot? I don't know. So I'm gonna visit with Catherine about that.
It's always weird too, because the state always has to make a special, proclamation to have Friday after their.
Oh,
So
right,
it's
yeah.
not the state's holiday
Yeah.
on the calendar, but it is for the county. So even like half the state employees are here but the county building's closed, so a lot of them like work from
Yeah.
home or remotely.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
and where that plays into for 2026, we will have to be open for early voting on the Friday after Thanksgiving for the runoff election. Because it's not a state holiday, it's just a
Mhm.
proclamation letting, and we requested a bill, we were hoping that where they were gonna make Good Friday a
Right.
holiday,
right.
that we could piggyback on that, but that Good Friday bill got no traction. Like it was filed and then didn't go anywhere, so yeah, so. But I will be, I've got a little list of things to ask, Catherine, about, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
If Becky's office has to be open, so. And I suspect that it does.
And I mean, I guess the question on that is, does it have to be open all day or does it have to be open until the mail shows up?
Well, so it can come in the mail, but also someone could FedEx it or UPS.
Oh, yeah, good point.
So I don't know.
And
Huh.
does the county still use a carrier service?
Mailco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a different time.
Mhm.
Okay,
So,
all right, so we are not gonna schedule a meeting other than this July the 10th. Until we have more data on, the next step on the budget.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Anybody?